Welcome to Equality Education, a show about inclusive teaching, supportive parenting, and a kinder future. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Equality Education Podcast with me, Olly Pike. And today is a special episode because it is the last episode of this series. Yeah, it's been really great developing the show for you, and I hope you've enjoyed listening and hopefully learning something from it. And I just wanted to say thank you for listening to this series. I really appreciate it. But fear not, I will still regularly be creating lots more LGBT+ and equality inclusive videos and classroom resources with Pop and Olly. And in fact, there are a ton of free printable resources over at popandolly.com right now, which you should go check out. But anyway, back to today's show. And today, my guest, FYI, who I was super excited to speak with, is an amazingly talented YA author, an incredible illustrator, and a person who identifies as aromantic-asexual. Today on the show, I have none other than the brilliant Alice Oseman. We talk about her writing/illustrating process, her latest book, Loveless, and how that book links with her own Aro-Ace identity. Hello, Alice. Welcome to the Equality Education Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello. Happy to be here.
How are you doing? You feeling good?
I'm good. Yeah, not too bad.
Amazing. We were just talking and I let you know that I'm so thrilled to have you here today. Like, I am in awe of your work. Like, you are incredible. Let me just reel off some of your achievements to all the listeners. Okay, so Alice, you are an award-winning author of young adult fiction. You've written 4 novels. You're a screenwriter. You're also an incredible illustrator. Now, I thought I was impressive, like writing and illustrating my own books, but your illustrations are like stunning. They're so good. You have created the LGBTQ+ young adult romance webcomic, Heartstopper, which I'm obsessed with. It is so cute. When did you start that, by the way?
That started in 2016. So quite a long time ago now. It's been around for ages.
Yeah, because I feel like I've got a lot to catch up on. I feel like I've read a lot, but I feel like there's so much more.
Do you follow online or do you read the books?
I've just started reading it online on like Tumblr,
okay.
Which is where it started, I think, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel like I want to buy the books because I feel like they'd make really nice gifts.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk about that more later. Actually, Heartstopper, it has now been turned into a physical book, which is incredible, like a comic, and it's been optioned for TV.
Yes, it has.
Which I wasn't sure what that meant, but it means like it's kind of like in the works of becoming like a TV.
I mean, do you want me to explain now, or should we talk about it later? Or?
Yeah, talk about it now.
Yeah, so option basically means that a production company has bought the rights to adapt it. So what they do then is like basically figure out how they would adapt it into a TV show. And then from there, they pitch it to broadcasters, which is actual people, BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Netflix, like all the online ones, they're broadcasters. So all I can say for now is that it has been optioned, and I've been working with the production company, Seesaw Films, to turn Heartstopper into a TV show, and fingers crossed someone will want to actually make it happen.
That is so exciting. Like, how does that feel?
It is like, I still can't believe it. I mean, the option happened quite a long time ago now, and I'm still working on it with them. But I still, like, every time I'm working on it, I'm like, wow, this is actually a thing.
That's like ultimate goals and dreams, I think.
It really
when
is.
You create as like a storyteller, like you have these stories in your head and you put them down on pages, and like even being published and having it turned into a book is like incredible.
Yeah. And
then to go on another journey with it, for it to kind of be interpreted into the same story but in a different way, it's like, oh my gosh, that's definite 100% goals. I'm like thrilled to hear that for you. And please, can I play Charlie?
Well, you have to audition.
We have similar hair.
You do. You have the perfect Charlie hair. I will say that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to turn up at the audition. You'll be like, oh. But anyway, today, what I'd really like to talk about is your new book, Loveless, which I've read, and it's awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. So much to like unpack there. But before we get onto that, I just want to read something which I found on your website, which I love.
Okay.
And it's about you. And it says that you can usually be found staring aimlessly at computer screens, questioning the meaninglessness of existence, or doing anything and everything to avoid getting an office job.
Yes.
Now, Alice, I feel like we're cut from the same cloth because that sounds a little bit like me. Like as much as I'm a creative, I feel like I spend all my time staring at computer screens or on my iPad drawing. And basically doing anything to not get a real job.
Exactly.
Although the more I like grow my work, the more it does sometimes feel like an office job. Do you sometimes feel like that?
Yeah, no, sometimes I'm sitting like at my desk all day and I'm like, wow, this is an office job now.
Yeah, it's weird. Do you have like specific hours that you work? Like I work a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Do you do that?
Oh, that's very strict.
I know.
Wow, that's
I know.
Good. I'm not that strict, but I do have sort of a routine. I always do Heartstopper comic pages in the mornings. Every morning I wake up and try and do one page.
What time do you do that?
I mean, I'm not an early riser. So that's usually like 10 a.m, 11 a.m. kind of time.
When you when you first wake up, yeah.
Yeah, basically.
That's so good.
Yeah. So that's like my little routine. And then the afternoon is just for like whatever else I've got on, because it's always something different. Like I've got different projects that I'm doing. So it's just like whatever's most urgent, whatever has the soonest deadline. And then I always work too late. I'm a bit of a workaholic. It's not good.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of creatives are. We just get in these zones, and I don't know about you, but I forget to like eat and go to the toilet.
Yeah,
because I'm so like engrossed, and like hours later, I'm like, oh my god, I'm busting for a pee.
Yeah.
But it's hard to sometimes like get a balance between letting your creative head lead and also like having this business structure.
Yeah.
And like sometimes we put in these like deadlines, but then that kind of compromises the creativity, and I find it quite a struggle. Do you find it a struggle sometimes?
Yeah. No, I definitely do. I've never been good with deadlines. I always produce my best work when I'm not stressed about a deadline. So like I always think my first book was the easiest to write because I was just writing it absolutely free, no deadlines, no pressure. Like I could do it whenever I wanted. It didn't matter when I finished it. But now, like, particularly with my latest book, Loveless, like I missed so many deadlines. Like I'll have to go into how long it took to write at some point because it just, like I would miss deadline after deadline. So throughout the whole process, I was just in this intense state of stress. And that's probably why I found it so hard to write. I'm not good with deadlines. Did
you have points when you were writing Loveless where you would just like scrap hundreds of pages or cross things out and even like start again? Oh
my God. Yeah. So like usually I'm not like that. So with all my previous books, I had a very detailed plan and then I would go ahead and write it. And I'm quite a slow writer, but that means I do less edits afterwards. So my first draft is usually quite polished. So I've done it really slowly, like with a really detailed plan. So I just knew exactly what I was doing.
Wow.
But with Loveless, that just all went out the window. So I mean, to go back to the beginning, I started planning it kind of immediately after my third book came out. So this was like middle of 2018. And I knew what I wanted it to be about, but I just couldn't figure out what actually needed to happen in the book, like what the plot was going to be. So it took me a long time to actually start writing. It must have been about a year, I think. It was like mid-2019 when I finally kind of sat down and was like, right, my deadline is coming. My deadline's like at the end of the year. I need to start writing, even though I don't have a very detailed plan. So I just like stormed ahead, even though I didn't really know what exactly was going to happen in it, and I'm not good at writing like that. I mean, lots of writers do that, but for me, I need a plan. So I did that, and it got to like start of 2020, and I just hated it. I was so unhappy with how it was turning out. There were just so many things about it that I didn't like.
Oh, no.
And I was like 60,000 words in, and I got to a point where I was ranting about it to one of my writer friends, and she was like, look, maybe you need to consider starting again. And I was like, oh my God, because I knew she was right. Like, I knew that was what was needed to happen. So literally I was at 60,000 words, and I just went back to the beginning and started again. And, you know, I could reuse a lot of the stuff that was there, but it was still kind of rebuilding it from the ground up. And that was just, it was the right thing to do, but it was stressful.
I bet, especially with that encroaching deadline as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Bless you. Do you think this book was slightly more difficult to write than your other ones because the theme and topic of it is something which is quite personal to you?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think that was a big part of it. Like, because I knew, I mean, from the beginning, I knew what I wanted the themes to be. You know, I knew I wanted it to be this kind of coming out story about an asexual aromantic girl.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be about friendship and, you know, how friendship can be just as powerful as romance. But plotting contemporary stories like that is hard because you want it to feel realistic. You need it to be interesting, but it can't really overpower like the themes and the emotional characters. The emotional journey of the characters is what's most important, as opposed to like the actual plot that's happening. So contemporary novels are difficult to plan at the best of times, but this one, because it was such an important story to me, and it was, you know, nothing like I tried to write before. It was hard.
Well, it reads fantastically, and I think you've done an absolutely brilliant job.
Thank you.
In terms of really explaining the aromantic and the asexual identities, because they are likely new words which some people might not have heard of. For anyone listening who doesn't know what these words mean, so aromantic is someone who experiences little to no romantic attraction, and someone who is asexual is someone who might experience little to no sexual attraction. And some people might identify as one or the other. Some people might identify as both. I quite like the shorthand for this. It's called Aro-Ace.
Yes.
That's like such a cool word.
It does sound cool, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so you identify as aromantic, asexual, Aro-Ace. And that's largely what Loveless is about. It's about, and you know what I do? I'm just going to read the little synopsis for everyone.
Okay.
So, okay, here we go. I try and do a really good job here. So, Georgia has never been in love, never kissed anyone, never even had a crush. But as a fanfic-obsessed romantic, she's sure she'll find her person one day. As she starts university with her best friends Pip and Jason in a whole new town far from home, Georgia's ready to find romance. And with her outgoing roommate on her side and a place in the Shakespeare Society, her teenage dream is in sight. But when her romance plans wreak havoc amongst her friends, Georgia ends up in her own comedy of errors, and she starts to question why love seems so easy for other people, but not for her. With new terms thrown at her, asexual, aromantic, Georgia is more uncertain about her feelings than ever. Ooh, and that is the little synopsis.
Very good.
Yeah, and no, I thought it was brilliant. I also love the way in this book, it's kind of like really chilled out, and it's not too complicated, and you flip from Scooby-Doo to Shakespeare seamlessly. Like, it's such a fun read, I imagine, for particularly teenagers and young adults who are in this place of like discovering their identities. And I love the way that you've included these new identities in there really well. So congratulations on this book. You should be super, super proud.
Oh, thank you.
But yes, going back to your identity, Loveless isn't autobiographical. However, the main character, Georgia, would you say there's like parts of you in her? Obviously because of her identity that she's discovering. she comes across as quite like a quiet person. She's got like a couple of like really, really good friends. Is that like similar to you, would you say?
Yeah, that is definitely similar to me. Like, her story is not kind of the same as mine, but personality wise, she is like quite similar to me in a lot of ways. Most of the book is set at university, obviously,
which I love. I didn't actually get to go to university, so I have a degree, but I went to like a dance theatre college, which wasn't a uni experience at all. So through your book, I kind of got to live that university experience, which was so nice. Like looked like so much fun. Did you go to uni?
Yeah, I did. I went to the same uni that's in the book, Durham University.
No way.
Yeah,
amazing.
So like all the uni stuff is basically based on, you know, my uni life, and I did not enjoy being at university. Like, that's kind of where mine and Georgia's experience differ, because although she struggles with like making new friends and stuff at the start, she really finds her place in the end, whereas I did not. I just didn't like, you know, it wasn't the environment for me, like where everyone was kind of being super sociable all the time, and I'm very introverted. So and in my first year in particular, I had to share a room like Georgia.
Wow.
Which is very
when
uncommon.
That moment happened in the book. Yeah. I was like, ooh,
very
I don't know how
uncommon
I'd
in
feel
the
about
UK.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's really rare. That's more of an American thing. And I showed up to university on my first day, and they were like, "Oh, you're in a shared room." And I was like, this is the end.
Oh my God, because that bit felt so painful in the book.
Yeah,
knowing her
it is
character.
like an introvert's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a very outgoing, friendly roommate like Rooney. I instead had a roommate who didn't want to be my friend.
Oh,
so sad.
I can't imagine that. That's sad.
So, you know, just like I didn't enjoy my course, things like that. It just wasn't the right place for me. But Durham itself is a really lovely university. And I wanted Georgia to, like, as she kind of comes to finding self-acceptance with her identity, she also finds, you know, kind of her place at university. She finds all these new friends and has a little group of people where she can be happy. Yeah.
I love the way she like goes on this journey, because at the beginning she's in this place where she expects so much of herself. And that kind of comes from, you know, societal expectations, which we all experience in real life, of what our lives should consist of.
Yes.
Like, you're meant to grow up and get a good job and fall in love and get a house and a mortgage and have children. It's like, that's what's expected of a lot of us. And that, although that is right for some people, it's not always right for everyone. So I'm so pleased that there is a book that explores this idea that actually romance and sex isn't right for everyone. Like, thank you for writing this book, because it's the truth, and people shouldn't feel pressured into doing anything that's not right for them, whether it's from society or whether it's pressure they're putting on themselves. And Georgia does put a lot of pressure on herself to feel normal. I'm doing like quotations, because she doesn't feel normal. And that basically is what the book is about. It's about her journey and finding what's right for her. And I love that she's got some friends along the way, Jason and Pip. I think Pip is my favourite character.
Yes.
She's hilarious.
She's one of my faves, yeah.
Yeah, is she like based on anyone you know, or she's someone like
she's
you've dreamt
not.
out?
She just popped into my mind. She was probably the most fun character to write in this book, because she's just really funny.
She's so cool. Like, I wish I had a friend like her.
Yeah.
And she's like super confident, super sure of herself. She has a few moments of like where you see her being a bit more vulnerable, which is nice. But yeah, no, I super love her character. So let's talk about your identity, your aromantic and asexual identity. Is that something you discovered at uni, like Georgia?
Yeah, a little bit. It's difficult to say. People ask me this a lot, like when did you find out? And it's not like there was one specific point. It was very much a process of like many years and many different things that I've experienced and, you know, research that I've done online. And I didn't have much of like an LGBT education growing up at all. Like I mean, I'm 25 and I think things have changed so much since I was at school. Like nowadays when I do book events and stuff, like I meet lots of teenagers and they tell me about how they've got like an LGBT club at school or, you know, things like that. And it's like, that's just so wild to me because there was nothing like that when I was at school. So I just didn't know much at all at that point. And then it was more when I got into uni when I was online a bit more and I kind of learned about things on the internet. And then just, you know, a process of several years when I kind of started to realise like that this, because I think the thing with being Aro-Ace is that there's always this feeling of, oh, maybe if I just meet the right person one day, like things will change. But it is, you know, it's difficult to kind of feel like, you know, deciding that this is not going to change, like this is who I am and that's okay. So it's complicated and it takes a long time, but yeah.
Yeah. So that was probably like a not very well thought out question, like when did you realise? Because it's like it's so much more complicated that. And it's like when people say to me, when did you realise you were gay? And it's like I don't really know. I just
exactly. It's not just one moment.
No, it's like it's little pieces of a puzzle, isn't it, that you're putting together for yourself. And then eventually you get enough pieces to like see a part of you and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And it's really great to have a book which explores this, because I feel, as I said earlier, there's so much pressure on people to live their life a certain way. And you might know my focus is on like younger children, so like primary age children. And a lot of my stories are LGBT plus inclusive. But I think mainly what I try to do is encourage children to think for themselves and pick their own destinies in a way and not feel like they have to do life one way, because there's many options and we're all different, and what's right for someone isn't right for others. There's such a like romance is like such a huge part of our culture, and it's so overwhelming, and I can imagine it must be everywhere for someone who identifies as Aro-Ace. It's like romance is everywhere. How does that feel? Is that exhausting?
It's so ingrained into like everything. I mean, half the time it's not even something I really think about. Like part of kind of the realizing process was, you know, feeling that pressure when you get to a certain age. You know, when you're like 16 and everyone's starting to like get into relationships and have their first boyfriend or their first girlfriend, first relationship. And, you know, that was kind of one of the first points for me. I was like, well, why is that not happening to me? Like, why don't I want to do this? And then, you know, when you get to 18 and people are starting to have first like sexual experiences, and it's like, well, why am I different? Like what's going on? And there are all these pressures like as you go up, and there's always like a timeline of things that people expect you to do. And you know, when you're an adult and people are like, oh well, when are you going to get married and have a baby? And it's like, oh you just got to let people live their lives. And it's difficult to get yourself out of the mindset of feeling like you need to fulfill all of these things, how people think you need to live your life and what is normal in quotation marks.
It's like armor, isn't it? It's like or like bricks. It's like, you get a brick for being in a relationship, and then you get a brick for like being married, or another one for having kids. And it's like we're building up these weird imaginary houses, or like this imaginary checklist, and it's like, is that actually what's right for us? I mean, 100% right for some people, but not for everyone. And personally speaking, it's like relationships haven't been my strong point in my life. Like I don't know why. I've been more focused on like being creative and work and my friends, and I'm fine. For a long time, people like relatives, and this is actually something that happens in Loveless, is that relatives would ask me like, "Oh, so have you seen anyone? You're not getting any younger," and it's like, "Oh my god." Like you must have experienced that as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's not fun.
No, and it's like you're only 25 as well, and it's like you're not even old. No. like I'm 34. I don't even think I'm old. No. It's like if something happens in the future, like amazing. Yeah. Like we don't need to put any pressure on it.
Exactly.
And I look at my granddad. Actually, he met his like the love of his life when he was like 58 years old, 60 years old. Yeah, so it's nice. like true love can happen at any age.
Exactly.
Maybe it's because we're always like looking forward and we're not actually living in the moment. Maybe that's part of it.
I think also it encourages people to kind of settle for less. Like people are so concerned with getting into a relationship and, like I said, fulfill this timeline. Often people will kind of just go with something that doesn't make them fully happy in a way.
Yeah, no, definitely. One of my books is The Prince and the Frog, and it's like a twist on like the traditional fairy tale, and in the end, spoiler, the frog actually ends up being kissed by a boy, and they like are in love and in a little gay relationship. But there's another character, Caroline, and the story starts with like her trying to kiss the frog because they think it needs to be a girl. And then at the end, they all ask her, they're like, "Oh, but what about you, Caroline? Like, who are you gonna fall in love with? When's your love story gonna happen?" And she's like, "You know what? I'm actually fine. I really love my life as it is." Aww. And yeah,
I like
and
that.
I feel like that was a really important part to include in a kid's story as well.
Definitely.
Because I think as kids, we know kids are like little sponges. They pick up on everything, and they're fed all the time that when you grow up, you become part of a couple.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's important to feed them other options as well.
Yeah.
Is that something that would have maybe benefited you if you'd have had something like that when you were younger?
Yeah, definitely. Particularly in like my early teens and my teens. I feel like when I was like 13, 14, like I went to an all-girls school, and that was the point where everyone was just like obsessed with, like rom-com movies and things like that, where, falling in love and having this perfect romance is like the main goal. So to have a story like that at that age would have been really beneficial.
I want to talk now about something I'm obsessed with. I mentioned earlier, Heartstopper.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, it's incredible.
Yay.
Is that the thing that came first? Did that webcomic come before all of your books, or had you written a book and then done Heartstopper?
No, so my books came first, my YA prose novels. I'll give you a brief timeline of my entire career.
Yeah,
So I wrote my first book, Solitaire, in 2012, and that came out in 2014. And then my second book, Radio Silence, came out in early 2016. But Heartstopper which is about Nick and Charlie. Nick and Charlie are existing characters from my first book, Solitaire.
Yeah. It does. They do link, don't they?
Yeah. They're very, very different stories, but they are in both of those stories. So after I finished writing Solitaire, I knew that I wanted to write more about Nick and Charlie, because in that book, they're together, they're in an established relationship, but we don't really learn much about them because it's not narrated by either of them. So I knew that I wanted to like tell their story somehow. And I tried for quite a long time to plan it as a novel, but I just couldn't figure out a way to make it work that I liked, because I felt like their story didn't have a very typical novel structure. There wasn't like a solid beginning, middle, end. It was much more of like an episodic story, where they kind of deal with all these things that come along, and it goes on for a much longer time than would happen in a novel. So 2016, I started planning Heartstopper as a webcomic because I love drawing and I love comics. So
you're so good at drawing. I'm so jealous. What do you draw on, by the way?
I draw on usually I draw on a graphics tablet. It's a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet, and Photoshop. But occasionally I do draw on iPad.
I draw myself on my iPad with my finger.
Yeah, iPad's really good. Yeah,
just easier. But I love your style. It's like it's kind of like anime meets like Disney a little bit. It's so cute. But sorry, carry on.
So Heartstopper launched in September 2016. And then it just kind of steadily grew from there. I was posting it online for free for people to read on Tumblr and Tapas, and eventually Webtoons as well. So that kind of went on for a couple of years. And then in 2018, I knew that I wanted it to be books. I'd always known that I wanted it to be books, but I had to wait until it was actually feasible, so it had enough readers who would want to buy it. And I talked to my agent, who's been my agent for all my YA novels, and she said, well, there's not really like a market in the UK for young adult graphic novels. Like, it's just not really a thing. That's more of a US thing, which is what I expected. I'd heard say, honestly, like there really aren't many YA graphic novels in the UK. It's just not really a thing. So I decided to self-publish, which is what a lot of webcomic creators do, through a crowdfunding thing. So usually people use Kickstarter. So I used Kickstarter, and it did really, really well, way better than I expected. And I ended up sending out almost like 2,000 copies of it, which was absolutely amazing. I did not expect that at all. But it did really well, and I was so happy with how the book turned out. It was a lot of work. Literally about half a year of my life was just me going to and from the post office every day.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
I get my mum to do my postage and packaging, bless her. So
my mum was also helping me.
They get roped in, don't they? Good old family.
Yes.
But I love the illustrations so much.
Oh, thank you.
There's so many as well. And, you know, as an illustrator myself, I know how long it takes to get pictures just right. But it must take up so much of your time illustrating and writing novels. Like, do you sleep?
No.
Me neither.
No. Honestly, I am just a workaholic. Like, it is bad. I really want to try and make an effort to put more time into like doing other things than work, because I honestly can just work from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep, and that is not healthy.
It's because like you're obsessed with it though, and that's why you're so successful, because you love it so much, and it's not just a passion. It's like you're obsessed with it. I bet you're just like always thinking about it.
I am. I really am. Yeah.
Do you like keep like a little notepad or something on you? So if you like get ideas, do you write them down?
So I have like a big document, a Word document, that where I just plan and write the whole of Heartstopper, because I write it as a script basically, and I have planned like the basic structure of the whole thing, like all 5 volumes. I know roughly what is going to happen. And then I try to plan in more detail as I get a little bit closer to the actually drawing it. And then I'll write it I try and stay like a few scenes ahead. So I don't write out the whole thing and then draw. I've written like a few scenes in advance, before I start drawing. So But yeah, no, I also do have like a little notepad thing, just like on my phone. If I just get a random idea, I'll just jot it down. I'm not really like a physical note sort of person. I don't write things down like a notepad. I'm definitely like a digital person.
Yeah, sometimes ideas just come in such random moments, and there can be such tiny things. And I know for me that sometimes that tiny thing can then turn into a bigger thing, and then it could maybe become like a video or then a book. Like, and it can just start as something as simple as like a joke, or like a pun or something. It's nice kind of seeing how ideas grow and flourish.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love this webcomic. Like, you've really captured like a teenage me that didn't exist. Like, you've really expertly done that, because like reading it, like just constantly have like little butterflies in my tummy. And I just really identified with like the Charlie character. And I know that's exactly how I would have wanted to be if I could have been as a teenager.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've done like an expert job on capturing them emotions and
good
putting it in such an adorable format online. So well done. Looking at something else now, I was on your website looking at some of your books, and I noticed that you're actually rewriting part of one of your books.
Yeah.
Firstly, before we delve into that, this was on your content warning page, which I think is incredible that you've got that, because some of your books do explore kind of like darker issues, and it's almost just like a little trigger warning saying that if you read this book, just so you know, it's going to explore bullying or mental health issues, possibly even like suicide in some books. So I think that was really great of you to put that up there. But yeah, I said on one of your books you're actually rewriting parts of it.
Yeah, so that is my first book, Solitaire. And this is something I've wanted to do for ages, but it was a really long, difficult job. So I hadn't been able to do it until literally last month, when I finally, I finished all my work, obviously on Loveless. I finished my work on my novellas, and I finally had the time to take like 2 weeks to just sit down and do some edits on my very first book, Solitaire, which, as I said, I originally wrote way back in 2012. So the reason I wanted to do that is several reasons, really. Firstly, as I said, Solitaire and Heartstopper are linked. They have the same characters in them, but they are very, very different stories. Heartstopper is a very light, happy, romantic graphic novel series, very suitable for younger readers. Whereas Solitaire is a very dark story. It's about mental illness. It's quite distressing to read, I think, for some readers. And I honestly wouldn't recommend that all people who have enjoyed Heartstopper would enjoy Solitaire. I think it might be quite triggering to a lot of people who have enjoyed Heartstopper. And I've had a lot of messages and comments kind of over the years from Heartstopper readers saying, "Oh, I just read Solitaire. I'm really upset about what's going to happen in the future of Heartstopper. Like, Solitaire was really distressing." And that's been like, I fully understand why people have had that reaction. And I wanted to do several things to Solitaire to try and kind of try and make it a safer book to read for people who have enjoyed Heartstopper. So some of the things that I've been doing has been in the new Solitaire edits are not out yet. We haven't put them into the actual book yet, but that will be happening sometime soon. I'm not sure exactly when. But it will have a proper actual page of content warnings in the book, like right at the front.
Okay. Cool.
Which is, I really think that's important because it is a very serious story.
Yeah.
And I've just done a few edits in the book to the way it was written to try and lessen its kind of distressing impact. Because there are always going to be people who've enjoyed Heartstopper who want to find out a bit more about these characters, and then they'll go and read Solitaire. And I want to make sure that it's not going to hurt people basically. So
wow, yeah. That's like super responsible of you, like, and I applaud you for doing that. Well done. It's interesting, isn't it, when we create stuff in the past and then like years later we return to it, and I feel like you're either like, depending on what place you're in, you're like super proud of it. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. Or you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. This is terrible. This is and I need to change that. And I know I sometimes feel that about some of my books that I've written 4 or 5 years ago. And I think it's because, we're all on a journey of learning about different identities and what's the most welcoming and kindest way of going about things, and telling other people's stories which aren't necessarily our own. So yes, well done for doing that. So where do you want to go? And interpret that as you will. Like, where do you want to go with your career, or where do you want to go on holiday? Where do you want to go?
Oh, I wish I could go on holiday somewhere. Someday we'll get to leave the country again.
Yeah, safely.
Career-wise, tricky. I am at this really interesting point right now where I've just come to the end of my book contracts with my current publisher, HarperCollins. Like, Loveless is done. I've just finished the work for my novellas, which are like Nick and Charlie, which came out in August, and This Winter, which is coming out in October. I finished all the work for that, so I'm just kind of like a free agent now. I can kind of choose like what I'm doing next, which is really exciting. And I haven't really been in this position before because I've been in book deals basically since like Solitaire was a thing, and that was when I was like 18. So now I really don't know exactly what I'm going to do next. Like, I think I'm probably not going to do a new young adult novel for a little while. I would like to try something a little bit different, whether that's more novellas, so more short stories, or maybe writing something for adults, or maybe I really want to write a spin-off graphic novel from Heartstopper about Tara and Darcy. So I would love to do that. So I have lots of ideas.
The other couple in it.
Yeah,
female lesbian couple.
Yeah. I really want to tell like their story, kind of how they got together, because that's not really explained in the story. So I have lots of options, but I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do next. So I guess we'll see.
Great, that's exciting. Okay, Alice, what refills your cup? What inspires you creatively?
Inspires me. I think, firstly, taking a break from work. I definitely need to stop working.
That's good that you know that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of workaholics don't.
Whether I actually follow my advice is debatable, but it is definitely helpful. And also consuming other people's art, just whether that's books or comics or movies, just experiencing other people's stories has always been a big inspiration for me. Like, particularly if I'm watching like a new movie that I haven't seen before, I always come away from it, if it's good, I always come away from it thinking, oh, I like that idea, now I want to write something. Like, that's yeah.
What advice would you give to either a younger you or a younger person now who maybe is unsure of their Aro-Ace identity?
I think I would say, like, it's okay to be unsure. It's okay to be questioning. I think there's not a lot of representation in any form, really, of when an Aro-Ace person is in that questioning phase and figuring things out. I think online it's very easy to find people who are very open, very confident about their identities, but not so many people, online or in TV or books or anything like that, who are in that questioning phase. So it's okay to not really be sure right now. You have time. You don't need to figure things out immediately. You don't need to decide what label is right immediately. You can just take as much time as you want. It's okay.
Brilliant. I mean, and that advice, we can say that to any person who identifies as LGBTQ plus, or even if they don't, like, that's perfect advice. So thank you for that. And final thing, Alice, where can people find you online?
Yes, so I am on Twitter and Instagram at Alice Oseman, or you can find out more about all of my stories and things I'm getting up to on my website, which is aliceoseman.com.
Yes, there's brilliant stuff on there, so definitely go check it out. Amazing, Alice. It's been incredible. I'm so overjoyed to have spoken to you. Thank you for giving up your time, and best of luck with all your exciting ventures, and I look forward to seeing more of Heartstopper.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to the last in the series of the Equality Education Podcast. Don't forget, I will still be regularly creating content with Pop and Olly on the Pop and Olly YouTube channel, and I will continually be adding resources to the members area at popandolly.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to this episode and the previous episodes. It's been really awesome creating this podcast and talking to all sorts of people, and I hope you found it useful and interesting. And don't worry. You will be able to find me online at Olly Pike and at Pop and Olly, and you will be seeing and hearing from me very soon in various formats. So I won't be gone for too long. But yeah, thanks for being here. Look after yourself and take care.